Hello, good evening and welcome to the Now Debate. I'm Jared Walters, here with my esteemed colleague Mr. Richard Oliver, and tonight we have spiritual medium, paranormal investigator and various other traits. A very good friend of mine, Mr. Kevin Gilroy. How are you, Kevin?
Hi kids!
Rich, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, yep.
And hopefully you guys will be joining us tonight and you'll find that there's not as much feedback as we did last week, have a bit of an issue. So before we get into the conversation with Kev, should we do a little bit of an update first, Rich?
Yeah, if you want to.
Well, first of all, we're looking at doing a Sunday news programme where we go over some of the paranormal news stories of the week. I've noticed you've been collating some news stories today, Rich, on your various social medias. And the other thing I want to just let you guys know, we have been investigating last week's Now Debate. It has been privated due to the various audio issues that we've been having, and there were various things that happened on that which I won't go into, but we are hoping at some point in the next few weeks to have Gary back on the show. So thank you guys for everyone who stuck by us through that. After listening to the audio afterwards, we thought it could have been a software issue, but we've looked over the software. There's no issue with the software, and it was a bit of a crazy night, Rich.
Yeah, I think it was the information that we were going to talk about, to be honest with you. We had some weird activity here in my home, and I know Gary's had a bit of an outing, bless him, since. And it's just one of them things. That's just the way the paranormal works. Spirit have the big ideas. We just are the people that follow their example.
So, Kev, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Sorry, Richard, do you have any updates before we go on to the main interview, bud?
No, I'm all good. I'm waiting to hear about Kev, I am.
All right, well, I'll let you ask the first questions then, because I'm going to let you take a little bit of the reins tonight, because obviously Kev is a friend of mine. And
Yeah.
I'll hand the floor over to you, my friend.
Yeah. So, Kev the Rev.
That's me.
As I've heard you've been called numerous times. What's that about then? What's with Kev the Rev then?
Well, I started out in Port Talbot SNU Church, and did my training through there. That's obviously how it comes in. So you got to have a cool nickname. So Kev the Rev, he just kind of stuck.
Yeah. It is him.
But my other half calls me a lot worse than that.
So you actually a reverend then, Kev? Are you actually ordained like you? Because I seem to remember something like that. Is it over in the States? You're ordained?
Yeah, well, I worked some churches over there as well. Yeah, in particular, my friend Kevin. Now, this is the confusing part. Now, Kevin over there is Rev Kev, and I'm Kev the Rev. So, it's confusing. So he runs Metaphysical Church of South Florida. So I've been over there, done stuff with him and various other stuff. But we visited some other churches when we were out there as guests. And my friend Darren, who went with me, Darren must be about 20 odd stone, and he taught me a guy called Darren Hembrow. And we sat amongst the congregation, and the mediumship out there was so bad. She went on to one lady and she said, "You got something wrong with your eyes." The lady had glasses on. Right? Honestly, this was the level of it. It was so poor. She went on to another lady full of makeup. "Oh, you got bad skin." And Darren turned to me and said, "If she turns to me and says, 'I eat all the pies we're leaving.'"
That's absolutely brilliant. Did she?
They picked up. It's actually true. They picked up on our Welsh accents, and they actually said, "You've come a long distance. Come on." He's from Casadega, which is supposed to be trained, good, but there we are.
You just like providing cannon fodder for the likes of Darren Brown and anyone who's like naysaying against it, like.
Exactly.
So how did you start then, my friend? What sort of
I as in a medium or as in the church?
As in a medium, or your relationship with spirit, then I guess.
I grew up seeing, these things you see kids, they got monsters under their bed. Well, I really did, And I used to see things, and I understand now as you get older. But I didn't know that the house that my parents bought growing up beneath was already haunted. There was a medium living there prior, and she was doing seances and all this sort of jazz. And obviously, I don't know whether she opened a portal there, etc. As a kid, you don't get it, There was lots of activities going on, but they never bothered me, only my family. And looking back now, as a obviously doing the exorcisms, I think I was protected by spirit.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And eventually, and things, you would dream stuff, then it would happen a few weeks down the road, and it just went from there. Then eventually, over the years, I went into Penyrch, a new church, which is a beautiful church if you're ever in the area. And I went from there, really.
And so how did you sort of end up going down the paranormal route? Because that tends to be part of the sort of specialty that you work on, is that right?
That was Darren taught me in our circle, got very, very sick, which is bad for him, but good for me because I was able to then go other places and learn.
Mm.
I went out with a group of guys who were doing clearance work. A couple of us went out, and obviously I sounded my own trumpet a bit, but they said, "Oh, that's the one we went," because I went there with common sense. It's not always ghosts, And obviously over the years, then you learn and you're ready to go on your own after so many years.
So, if you could could you describe the kind of work that you do, or where you were at, sort of with your work at the moment, and that sort of thing? Can I ask?
Yeah. As you know, I tend to deal with the demonic and the real demonic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The heavy stuff, not just love and light. I go the other way. So you can see those full of scars. I was telling you Jared came onto my show Friday, and I've showed the teeth I've lost from fighting demons and cuts and bruises, and I'll take out some photos. Do you want to see these?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the cuts and scars I've got, and people have faffed around and have been attacked. This hang on, bear with.
That's not a problem, dude.
Can you see that?
Let's take a look.
I was bitten by a demon. Can you see that?
I can see the Kev. Oh yeah. Oh bloody hell.
That put me in bed for 2 days. The energy of that, and that came from a house we went to in Swansea, and I found behind up in the attic there was a partition on a wall, a false wall.
Yeah.
What had happened? The prior people there were doing satanic rituals, and obviously it was all kicking off, and an entity that was there obviously didn't want to go back, because what a lot of people don't know is when possession's very, very rare, but when a demon's inside a person, it's at peace, because that's all it knows is torture and anguish and hatred, and it doesn't want to get sent back, because if it does, it gets tortured more. So on its way out, that was his passing shot. 2 days in bed with that. That wrecked me.
Bloody hell. So, Richard...
2 seconds. Are we definitely live, buddy? Because I know Emma's having trouble finding us on the page.
We are live, yeah. Are we on the... Yeah, we are on the right channel.
Yeah, Paranormal, I got us, but I'm just checking. Emma's struggling to find us.
Right. What I'll do, if you carry on talking, Rich, carry on asking Rich Kev the questions, and I'll send the link over to Emma so she can continue.
Right. So I'm going to show another photo of a lady. Yeah. These people, they say that don't worry about the living. It's the dead can't harm you or something like that. Is that your dad all saying?
Yeah. Don't worry about the dead. It's the living you worry about.
Yeah, well, that's bollocks, right? So, can you see she got attacked by a demon? Can you see that?
Yeah.
She was faffing around with the Ouija board whilst drunk, thinking it was fun. So that was that. Well, there were lots of photos over the years, and I think people don't realise what they're inviting in, I'm trying to get some of the interesting ones. Now, I went to I was up in Merthyr, and I went to a factory. Look at that for an orb. Can you see that on my top of my head?
Yeah.
Now we went there. Cut the long story short, there were monks walking through the building, obviously like stone tape theory.
Yeah.
But the manager said he had so much activity getting on there that he actually swore. He said, "I've had a guts full of this spirit. Get Casper out here." And with that, he was picked up and flung out of his chair. Saturday, I was in that factory. trying to sort it all out. So it's amazing what's out there.
So is it always? Did you sort of learn through the church, Kev, before you went out doing the investigations, or?
I learned with another couple of people. I haven't had their permission to use their names, obviously. I went out with them for a while, for a good few years, and then when you're ready. Then I think spirit takes you, doesn't it? You can go, but I'm at the point now where I'm teaching people, so I'm giving back now, But I don't take out the people that say, "Oh, I want to come ghostbusting." Those are not the people you want, You need someone with a bit of sense, and it's not always spiritual. It's first rule of paranormal is to discount the normal.
Yeah.
Common sense first. Sometimes it's mental health. And I have passed people on to doctors and psychologists, and especially with children.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a fair share of kids developed over the years, and I've had my fair share of people asking me to help people with mental health, and it's difficult because I've had people turn to me when they should be turning to doctors, or and it does put you in a bit of a predicament. But so what would you say? What would you say the worst case is you've ever done, Kev? What would you say the worst one you've ever done? The one that made you think fair share of people out there to help people.
I got thrown. Well, no, I've never. Don't get scared. I got thrown. I got thrown down the stairs in a house in Nice. I got sometimes, like, possession is very rare, but when you do, sometimes you have to hold people down. And I can tell you a story about this. We'll say it was in Swansea, for example, to cover confidentiality. Of I think they were Muslim, and they were doing their form of exorcism in their language. Obviously, the client was shouting and screaming. Now, she couldn't speak English, this lady. So the police were obviously called by the neighbours, what's going on? So the police attended. Officers went upstairs to the bedroom. This woman that was possessed sat up, turned to the officer, said, "Hello, Michael." That officer, to this day, I know, refuses to patrol that street. It's a true story. There was I can give you loads of stories. Have you got time to yak about them?
Yeah, of course we do. Just to let you know, Richard, if Emma wants to look at the channel now, it is there. I found the problem. It's resolved. You should find it on the channel, and everything's fine.
Find it.
I went to a home, and obviously with another person of another denomination, and this lady, we had to hold down. Somebody's got to restrain them. But she broke out of these ropes, came at me in a man's voice, shouting, "See you next Tuesday," if you know what I'm getting at. Grabbed me. That's why I got my scar there. I don't know if you can see that, but with a man's voice. And I work with Metatron and Ascended Masters. And we managed to push her back down. That was the first time ever I've heard them say, "Get your hands off our boy." And we managed to get her down. I lost that tooth. I think I got punched in the face. So I've been around a bit. I'm full of cuts and scars.
How did you, like, are you on about, like, being sort of physically sort of attacked then? How common is this? Does this sort of thing happen to you, buddy? Because I know we've done quite a lot of cases over the course of the last sort of like 5-10 years now. For Richard, it's been longer, but I would say it's like the really bad ones have always been like not as common, and they say the bad where you're being physically attacked. We've got like plenty of like things where other things have happened, but how often have you actually found yourself in those types of situations?
I think if out of a score of 10, you could probably say about 4 to 5. They're not always frequent. You get a lot of poltergeist activity and books and things, but I had a phone call last week off another medium that she went to a house in Nice and she was strangled. So a lot of work I get comes from those people that they're only used to living light, see? And that doesn't work against demonic stuff. You have to be a bit more aggressive.
Sorry, Jazz. What do you mean by a bit more aggressive, Kev? What do you mean?
I'm not all love and light. Sometimes you have to use certain language, certain. I've got my book here. No, I got a certain. You have to exorcist prayers. Those prayers are designed for those things, and that sort of. Once you, if you figure out if it is demonic, and once you get their name, they're on a back foot anyway.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And I never work the same way twice, because they will learn and they will set traps for you.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to be very, and sometimes you have to realize, what people don't know, it's not the client, it's the target, it's the clearance worker. So people have to be mindful of that sometimes.
Yeah. I did a video about the same thing yesterday. I did a video about my interaction with like demonic forces yesterday, funny thing. And it was I struggled to try and explain it from my point of view. But in the video, I did actually state this. It's worse for me because I'm putting myself in the line of fire, like you just stated there, Kev. We're putting ourselves in the line of fire. So it's a bit harder for us, and we're a bit more of a target.
Right. I run a church with my mate Dan in Gosainen. So I can never get a reading because every bugger knows me around here, right? So
Yeah.
we had a medium come along, and it's the only time I sort of readings, and he said, because the work that I do, when I turn up to a place, spirit gets scared because they know what you do. So they obviously must talk about us that side, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so this way you have to be very careful about the traps, and that's why we work the same way all the time, the same way. Because they'll have you, they're clever, they're deceitful. And I think a lot of light workers start to feel sorry for them, and they shouldn't, because they just want to kill you. That's the job, because this. Do you know about the 5 stages of possession? Have I told you about that?
Right,
I'll explain. Right. So what it is, for people that don't know, there's more than 5, but I work at 5. You've got to keep things simple, because I think once your ego gets in the way, things get complicated, and then you start to lose where you're going. So for those of you that watch or listening to this, the first one, you'll have the reconnaissance, where it comes in and he looks around and who's the weakest one and who can I target, and that's where the infestation comes in. So the person or that client then will become oppressed, and they'll break them down, and normally it's all to do with divide and conquer, and it's normally the women who have more common sense than men, and they'll get somebody in, because a man will try and be, I'm going to fight it, or, well, what are you going to do, mate? Jump in with your mates, is it? Ain't going to happen, right? So that's when the possession comes in, because that person is so broken down, and that's all that idea of possession is to get one of God's souls and go, screw you, we got one of yours. And that's the idea of possession. Now, there's a thing called a perfect possession. Now, a perfect possession is somebody who's actually invited the demon in, and there's nothing you can do to help those people. So there's different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because demons, like angels, are numberless, and they have a ranking order. So the first top of that ranking order, you got Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Leviathan, Belphegor, and Mammon. And under then you have the 10 devils, which are fates, poltergeists, incubi, succubi, marching horse, familiar demons, nightmare demons, fertility demons, deceptive demons, clean demons, and deceiving demons, and so on and so forth. And so like angels, they're numberless. So anybody that says you go to anybody's house, and I try to get this into people's head, they say it's Satan. It's not. A general won't go to an army, he's not going to go in himself. He's going to send his workers in,
Yeah.
Bit long-winded, but answer to your question. But
did you learn that? Did you learn that through the Spiritualist Church, Kev, or did you learn that on your own accord?
Some of it, but I'm always learning. I got books and books and books here. Now, I'm going to show you a book. Now, Jared, you know about this. I don't know if don't buy this book. It sucks. I'm going to lend it to Jared, and then he's going to burn it. And it sucks, right? It's an exorcist that explains the demonic, and it's written by Father Gabriel Amroth. From a Catholic perspective, fair comment. But when he starts blabbing on about people wearing satanic t-shirts invite demons in, that's when I started to lose interest. It's absolute the pits. And don't talk to any people like us, spiritualists. We're all in league with the devil. But what he's not telling you is they actually do seances in the Vatican. And I know for a fact they do. So it's one rule for one. Or I could just burn it now. So I read other books, and there's other things I study, and in here it gives you a complete list of all the demonic names, because people don't realize demons don't have just the one name. Like Lilith, if you've ever come across Lilith, she has about 40 other different names, And I say she, and I shouldn't, because demons don't really have a sex. That just comes from mythology.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly learning, constantly studying.
Yeah.
Because anybody that says they know anything about spiritualism is a liar.
Yeah.
You got to keep your ego in check, man. Keep yourself grounded, you know? And I don't... Go on. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Jazz, your sound is not coming through the live stream, buddy.
My mic is gone. Sorry, guys, my mic was issue. We're still having a few technical issues after last week, so I apologise. What I was saying there, Kev, was like there's different cultural references for different things. So if you asked someone about like a certain being, for example, I'll give you an example, right? Like if you look at Satan in Islam, it basically means opposition, or that which is opposed to. So it's like when you look at all the different sort of cultures and things around the world, they've got different names for the same thing, and I think that's where I can find it a bit sort of confusing for me personally. And obviously, different people have different beliefs because they work different ways, and I believe it's different ways of looking at the same thing. But that's where I kind of look at it, and I kind of like, well, I've kind of struggled with it over the years because I look at it in I've been confronted with let's just say the same thing, but maybe from a Celtic perspective, which says something completely different. We dealt with a case a couple of years ago, and they were I can't remember the name of the entity, but they were bringing in an entity for doing bad things, or at least the result of it was bad. But if you actually looked that entity up in other cultures, it was actually viewed in a completely different way, and that's what I found quite. So, like, do you ever have like struggle with that, or is it the fact that you? No. It's what you.
No, so I don't, because if you're confusing the issue, then see, and that's where they can get you. So sometimes you have to keep your mind clear. Like that's what it is, and that's what I'm going with. Because if you start overclouding your judgment, you put yourself in danger. Now there is a thing called, you know, the knock on wood, the three knocks.
Yeah.
You know, people say in Sunday is the Trinity, don't they? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But in Native Indian American cultures, it means something totally different.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, you know.
Yeah.
So, but most of these things that will attack people physically are demonic, and that's what you're there for, you know.
Yeah. No, I'm not disputing that.
So don't let it cloud your judgment because you read something that means that, because that's where they can trick you. That's what they do. They tricksters. Does that make sense?
Kind of, but again, as I said...
But I guess you have to be in the room at the time when it's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, it is, I suppose, it's more sense of, like, it's very difficult to sort of portray that, because obviously what I'm thinking is, if you've got someone watching the channel who's, let's say, from, you know, a Germanic tradition, or from, maybe has got a different background, and a different point, they would look at those different things, but they would have different names for them. But I suppose you've got to look at it from the cultural reference of which you were specifically standing in at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So would you say all the cases, or the majority of the cases you deal with, Kev, would you say they're mostly demonic?
No,
in
absolutely
nature?
not. No, absolutely not. No. Sometimes these things are entities. They're trying to tell you they are, and they're not, because they're trying to give themselves power and recognition. There's things you tell people not to give it recognition. Sometimes it could just be somebody just trying to get attention. Or they don't know they passed away. Why can't you see me? So it's a puzzle when I get there. It's putting things together.
We're exactly the same.
You've got to use common sense and like, I don't charge people anything. So less was a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And I try to educate people when I come out. When you go to someone's home, you're in their home. You're their guest. And
Exactly.
you have to and behave professionally.
Yeah.
And if they offer you a cup of tea, great. If they don't worry about it. Take a bottle of water with you. But I did. It's a little bit of a sad story. We went to a house, and the lady she was Penny, I suppose so, and she spent the last of her money buying a jar of coffee for us. So we went out after we did the clearance. That's all it was. Because sometimes it's people moving things with their own mind. They think it's poltergeist, and it's not. It's them, because they're stressed and what have you. So we went out, we bought her some shopping, brought her back. Oh, she was so grateful. So that kind, I felt awful sorry for her.
Yeah.
And to have spiritual stuff on top is like, oh.
Do you find that, like, demonic things, though, are on the rise, Kev? Would you say they're on the rise, or they're dying down, or what would you say was the census
I
on
think
that?
I'm getting busier and busier. I got 15 houses waiting for me at the moment, and I put it down to a lot to these paranormal films coming out, or the TV shows, and people are watching them getting drunk or high. Oh, we'll have a go with the Ouija board. We'll have a go with these things. And they don't realise that they're opening doors, and what comes through, good or bad, you're going to get on with it. But that's how it is. You're not going to beat Hollywood, I don't guess. Keeps you in a job.
Do you think it's down to, like, people watching stuff like paranormal shows and paranormal films?
I think so. Because I don't think people realise it's meant to entertain and encourage to get results. Not like because you've been out, I've been out. You can sit there for hours and then nothing will happen.
Yeah.
In the real world.
So what would you say was in all, like, obviously, how many are, like, sort of exorcisms have you done in that sense? How many sort of clearances?
I've done hundreds of clearances, thousands of them, thousands, I'd say. But exorcism is so very rare. You can probably count on two hands how many times you do it in a lifetime. It's very, very rare, because most of the time that'll be mental health. Because you have things like autism now and epilepsy and Tourette's. These things were mistaken years ago as these things. We know better now.
Yeah. What would you say, just out of curiosity, what would you say is the most, like, you said there's ranks to these things and different things. What would you say is the most powerful one you've come across?
Well, the one I've ever come across would probably be Lilith, I would think. But you'll come across the same demon 2 or 3 times sometimes, because they get soldiers, they're foot soldiers, Yeah. But there's an ascending order. So I said about Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub earlier. They look after the 7 sins. So you got Satan looks after anger, Lucifer does avarice, Beelzebub does envy, Asmodeus does gluttony, Leviathan has pride, Belphegor lechery, and Mammon looks after sloth. See, they all have jobs. But the mistake people make with demons, don't forget, they're all fallen angels. They retain the same power as angels. So don't ever, misstep them.
You say the being, this most commonly known as Lilith, is the worst one or the most powerful?
No, I've come across Lilith once or twice. And I'm trying to think. I suppose that. Yeah, probably her I've come across. I say her, although it's not a her. Just, makes it stories of you guys. But I'm full of, that's what I said earlier about not working twice, because they've made us see me, okay, well, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. And it comes back to where I was told in church, they know who you are. See? So when I tell people, if I take a booking, don't mention I'm coming, because it could make things a bit worse.
Yeah.
Do you have that problem? Yes, you will. Yeah,
we just on a phone call, the activity will die down because they know we're coming in to, like, sort it out. That's it happens. Just on a conversation, it can happen. And they do know, we've had simultaneous paranormal experiences which are exactly the same, trying to make us aware of a case. It's a spirit to trying to get us all on the same page. I
agree with that, and I think when people send a prayers or thoughts, the spirit will send the person's capable of doing it. But I always think, like I with Jared, I send stuff to Jared. There's no point. You got to put your ego. There's no point me traveling to where you are if you're living there, and vice versa.
Yeah.
That's how we should be as a team.
Exactly.
It's a team effort, you know. With all of
But the other thing is, though, I find this problem, and this isn't. I know you were talking about ego, but I find the problem. I don't find many people like as investigators that I would put in that position for the person's benefit and in their own ability.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, it's like if we've had new people join the group, we take them for tests. So we take them to places locally that we know are potentially haunted, and we see how they fare. Because you can't go into a house case and you fill your pants in front of the people you're trying to. It's not going to do anyone any good. So that's what. Yeah, that's what we've done over the years. But I don't find. I got to be honest. There's not many groups I would actually hold my hand up and say that I would recommend them to do a case that I've been asked to do. And
I think sometimes people don't really. I understand what you're saying. I think there's a difference between an investigation and a clearance. And I think some of these groups haven't, like I've been to church, so I've been trained in circles and I know what I'm doing. But they haven't. They watch TV, they've gone about these K2 meters, they're Ghostbusters. But they're riling the spirits up, they don't realise what they're doing and leave them behind.
Yeah.
I think my analogy is anyone can go to the moon, anyone can go, into the sea, but not everyone can go to the moon, not everyone can go to the sea, but anyone can ghost hunt. And I hate the term ghost hunt because to me it's a paranormal investigation. Ghost hunt is disrespectful because spirits were people too.
Of course it is.
I hate the term.
Yeah, we're not fans. I've never been a fan of that. It just sounds like you're going, it's like you've got a gun and you're going to go, as soon as he goes, you're going to shoot it with something. Like, it's it just sounds mental. I know how you feel about that one.
And I think they just go out looking to get a good photo of an orb or something. But what they don't realise, if they came across something real, they'd scarper. This is facts. And what they don't realise, they can take stuff home. They get attachments.
Absolutely.
I always say, be careful, because once you see something, you can never unsee it.
No.
That's right, yeah.
It's stuck in there, and it will always be in the back of your head going, no, remember what happened. Yeah. And it can be devastating.
Yeah, I know people that.
I know people that.
I went to a woman and she was actually being raped by the entity. To the point, the film The Entity. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
I've seen that in real life, and I've seen it happen to children as well. She was so badly attacked that my voice is going. Her nipples were black, and she was sleeping with a Bible between her legs. So that comes from doing ghost hunts. Follows you home. And I don't think they realise it doesn't happen straight away. It could take weeks, months before they break you down.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough not to come across something to that extent, even though we've come across our own devastating cases, But yeah, I've been fortunate enough not to come across something to that.
I've been to houses where there've been paedophiles raping children, spirit ones, in front of their parents, because they thought it was funny to faff around with stuff. I'm going to try and dig out some more photos for you. Can you see that one? There's a light in the way.
It's a bit overexposed, but.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. Oh.
Hang on, try it again.
Yeah, it's there. You can see scrams.
Can you see it?
Yeah, back it up slightly. That's better.
It is. Yeah, you can see it.
That's another one faffing around with Ouija boards. But even tarot cards you have to be careful of up to a point, because you're still opening doorways.
Yeah.
Well,
it's the analogy I gave you when we had that conversation on Friday, isn't it? It's like you wouldn't go into a chemistry lab with no protective goggles or no protective gear and start randomly mixing chemicals together. You wouldn't do it. Just to see if things go bang.
I put on my page for years, right? Don't faff for these things. And I get people message me last week, I bought 3 of those. Well, I think they assume we can go and help them, but we have lives as well. So no.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to wait,
We currently got a person who is buying haunted objects from the internet, right? And they are buying them by the bucket load. And they just keep buying them. And I've said you'll get to a point where no one will be able to help you. You will get to a point because you're bringing it upon yourself. And it's quite something to see how people can
one of the, I think it's an obsession then. That's what it becomes. It's because it's like any other obsession. It's easy to get in, but you can't get out. But that could also mean they may already have an attachment, and this is why they're buying all this dark stuff. They've already the stuff in the house now. So especially with debug boxes and stuff like that, you know. But a lot of stuff on eBay isn't haunted. You're just getting ripped off most of the time.
Yeah. I got to be honest, some of the sites, where they saying they're attaching, the only thing I didn't like about it, they're attaching souls to like things like dolls, right? And this one has a friendly soul attached to this doll. She just likes to play and she likes to be read stories. And it's like, well, why is there a soul attached to a doll? For starters, common sense would make you go, well, how has that occurred? And why is it being sold on the internet?
Exactly. If you want some dolls, go check out Ann Summers. They're probably safer.
Yeah, well, depends who buys them, really. But I got to be honest, it's such a. I hate to put a neg on it because it is such a dangerous occupation.
Oh God, yeah.
And for years I've been saying it, and I hate it because I don't know about you, Kev, but I found wonder in it. I found like proper stories of unquestionable and pure love in the paranormal, right? Yeah. Of things that will literally, I've like you, I've had the polar opposite as well. I've gone down the road that is so neg. It happened to me. I investigated years and years ago the Skirrid Inn. And there was a story of paedophilia come up in that, right? And it rocked me, right? I had to go outside, right? They had to take me outside. And this happened, we done it in another castle in Wales where me and Jazz were invited and we got kicked out. There's a couple of places around Wales where we've done this and it's come up. And it's awful, right? It really affects you. I've done cases where it's come up. But then I've had the opposite where I've come across a case and the story, the spiritual story in this case, it's uplifting, like it's just beyond.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. When we get people to come to our church services, when they find, sometimes it takes some people to come years and not get a reading, and they get that one night, and to see their face light up and what happy tears in it, it's fun. It's worth all that then, just to see that, when you do one-to-ones and you bring so and so through, and I've been looking to just to show that love is life after life. Yeah, it's all just energy. It goes on.
Yeah. This happened in cases. Me and Jazz done a case, and we had about 20 odd people come in, and something had happened, and all these people we could help a person. And
it was a charity night for the British Heart Foundation, and we basically had like 25, 30 tickets sold, and it rained. It absolutely hammered down for the entirety of the night, and 3 people turned up from one family, wasn't it, Rich?
Yeah. 2 people turned up from one family.
Oh, it was 2
mother
people.
Mother and
daughter. Yeah. Carry on. Sorry, I just thought I'd give some context to what you were saying. Yeah,
and Spirit had organised it so we could give them our undivided attention because they were in a place, and it was just like the length this Spirit went to make this happen. Oh my God, it was incredible! And it was just that little stories like that. Yeah, they will keep you trucking on. They will keep you trucking on. Have you got stories like that? Have you got
Well, most of mine, I'm happy. I didn't one-to-one readings or from church, But what I do like is when you get a phone call about a week or 2 later and people say, 6 months down the road, we can now sleep at peace at night. We're not scared. And I love that. That job done. That's mine. And but because other people have gone there, charge them hundreds of pounds, rip them off. And you've gone there, So it sounds a bit as if you're blowing your trumpet, but you're not going with ego then.
Yeah. No, I know exactly.
But I have been on investigations, and people obviously don't know where I am. You can see they're all you know, they're just there for the cash. So if you get an opportunity to ask questions, so I'll ask them in spiritual, and you can see them looking. I know this guy knows what he's on about. You're not going to con me, sir.
We've done that as well, haven't we?
You know, and you can see all of a sudden the activity stops that they had. You know, because I can tell you of one place not far from here, and they were doing paranormal nights, and I found out a few weeks back they were actually setting people behind doors to bang doors, and they charge 50, 60, 70 quid for that. It puts the rest of us back there in 50 years.
Yeah, of course it does, man. It's just, that's the problem, isn't it? It's so.
And I always say to people, if you know, just go to a spiritualist church, SNE or independent, and just go and sit in one for an hour. That's your evidence. You know, don't have to pay 50, 60 quid a night.
No.
Yeah.
You know, and that comes back to what I said earlier about not charging people, because not everyone can afford 10, 20 quid. You know.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
Rich people shouldn't be just the ones you're helping. That's not right.
No. But in that, saying that, I have been to churches where they try and pull the wool over your eyes as well. I've seen it with the trumpets and all that malarkey and plasma and God knows what, and I was like, oh.
Well, I mean, you can do that sort of stuff if, like, some people tend to do it in the dark, but I always say you could just do it in the light. I know, but I just say I want to see it. You know, not everyone agrees with me. And a lot of people don't agree with me when I say that, especially up in. But if it's a nice place, it was.
I got a great excuse for that. It's like, don't turn the lights off because I can't see then.
Yeah. You know, and I think some people.
Sorry, guys, I flicked the wrong button then.
I do say that some people can be like magicians and they can fake it. Yeah. Because there was one guy doing that sort of trumpet stuff, and he was caught out because he flipped the lights on. And they had a person, and what he was doing, he was crawling up the circle to pick the stuff up, to come back in. You know?
Yeah.
So just do it in the light.
I've seen it.
It's my opinion.
You know, you get them saying all the light hurts the spirits and stuff like that, and I've been in and been in that situation, and it's not the best.
No, you know, ghosts. You know, ghosts just don't work night shift. you know, spirits are all the time, like, you know. But I always say these people, there's no point doing it, because when it's your turn to cross over, that's your penance. You're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah, of course you are.
You know, you don't get away with it in the long term.
No. And you know, that's the thing, and I think that's the problem at the moment, is the culture that's been developed around things like ghost hunts and that sort of thing, is that people are curious, and I don't have a problem with them existing. What I have a problem with is them existing in their current form. And like we've done investigation nights, so we've done the public, but we've always done it cheaper, and a lot of the time we've done it for charity, so at least the money is going to a good cause. But you know, we always explain to people, well, you know, we will show you the different techniques, we will show you the different things, but we will show you how to do it properly, and in doing that you may not get the experience that you believe you may have had on, you know, Most Haunted or that sort of thing, but you will get a genuine experience, and sometimes the genuine experience is nothing on other times. And I think as well, it's like you gotta have a bit of a respect for like history and that as well, because a lot of people like, oh, it's a castle, it's a haunted castle, oh yeah, that's gonna be good. Well, what about the history of it? You know, if there are ghosts there, why are those ghosts there? What happened? Where did that come from? And start asking the questions. And it's like, a amount of people have come to me and said, oh yeah, this spirit has come through, and they've said, like, call him this or that and the rest of it. And they've matched it to the history, but they can't quite get the name. And I said, well, if you actually look at the history and what was actually going on at that time, you will understand why that spirit is coming through in the way that they are. And if you respect that mentality, it's like something simple, like, you know, back in the 1950s, if I seen a person older to me in my grandmother's generation, I wouldn't call her by her name, I would call her Mrs. Butcher. So like, even respecting different things like that, you know, how things change. People expect the behaviour to be like it was yesterday, whereas a lot of time you've got to take that history into account.
Yeah, I agree with that. That comes from experience and learning correctly as well.
Yeah, of course it does.
I went to a rugby club years ago, And that, I can honestly say, was the most active place I've been. Not a castle, look, not a pub. It was a big club. And it was so active from the moment we got there. We've been back 2 or 3 times, invited back. Because I think because we went with respect.
Yes.
You know, other people go, do this, do that, do that. Well, if you go with respect and ask the proper questions, you get a better result, you know?
Of course you do. It's like anything else. If you, the way I say to people, the way you deal with this is you treat a person like a person. Just because they have not got a body doesn't make them any less of a person. They're just a person who's not driving a vehicle.
That's right, I agree with that.
You know, if I was going to speak to someone for the first time, I would say hello. You know, I envisage myself, you know, when I'm working with a spirit mediumistically, shaking their hand. Hello, my name is Jared. Nice to meet you. And that's where we begin from. And it's not any spirit that wants to make their presence known. It's, who are you? You know, you're welcome if you have good intent into our awareness, into our and into the conversation, and we go from there. And I think that's I think like a fundamental lesson that we need to learn. And you know, that's the difficult thing. I think that's the difficult place that people are. They're seeing spirits as some sort of Hollywood entity, like you said, and not seeing them like people.
I think the mistakes as well some of these groups make, because they say amateurish, but they're like shotgun questions, fire question, but they got to fit. These people are on another plane. Give them a chance to answer, you know?
Yes, exactly. You know? Absolutely.
And especially if, you know, you have the aura, the pareidolia comes in as well. There's little things like that people should study and learn.
Yeah.
If you're hearing things, you might not be hearing, you know. Not everything's a ghost. It could be a creaking floorboard.
Exactly.
Not everything you see. You know, it's your eyes. But these things you have to learn and go up with the right people. And study and learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I have some questions, Kev. I think our audience would like to know, right? One is, what would be the best thing to look for if there was something demonic in the home or in presence? What would be the first things to look for?
Well, there's various things they will do spiritually, right? So I'm going to tell you to suck eggs because you might know. There's little things, you know, they might just move things to get your attention, you know? And this is where they try and turn people against each other. Oh, I left my keys there. No, you didn't. That's where the argument starts. You know, little things, subtle things. Will they break you down? It's also a smell. Sometimes they smell of pee. You got things, but a demon it's called glamoring. I don't know if you heard that term. It can actually show itself as a person, but it's not actually a perfect person. There's little things with a trained eye you can see. So it's little things like that, you know. But if you know what you're looking for, I don't want to cloud people and get too deep into it because they won't sleep. Yeah. But there's little things like that, movement of things and poltergeist activities and seeing stuff. But then again, you can see stuff at the end of your bed, and you know there's mental health issues there. But if we went down, it was spiritual. You know, you would get somebody in then, maybe. But I know clergy might have turned up and not gone into houses and refused. And this comes back to the spiritualist movement. So I have to go and sort it out. Excuse me. So, you know, there are people out there that can help.
Well, I've ever heard of Lionel Fanthorpe?
Say again?
Lionel Fanthorpe.
No.
Well, he's in the film The Omen. He basically played himself, right? He's a supernatural vicar, right? And he came to a house in Cardiff and did exorcism, like a blessing type exorcism.
Yeah.
He gave me a prayer, right? Now, Spirit obviously removed this prayer from my keeping, right? Because they didn't want me to use it. And I've never been able to find this since, this prayer, right? It broke me. But he was amazing meeting this chap. I mean, he used to have a show back in the day called Weird Wales. And
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really famous guy, Lionel Fanthorpe.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He was really famous for doing paranormal investigating, and he did lots of shows on cultural references around Wales and that. And he said, you know, he'd been up against it, you know, a couple of times. But he always said they're like a paper tiger. He said they don't really have any real teeth. It's what they do up here. They can be just as, you know, it's just as damaging as if they physically harmed you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think sometimes that's what they play off as well, is that psychological thing as well. That's how they said earlier about breaking you down, about the oppression.
Yeah.
Before the possession takes, and that's what they try to do that way. Mind games. You know, they're clever, they're devious. Don't ever feel sorry for them. Never feel sorry for them.
Psychology. There's a lot of psychology. You know, I've come up against it.
People don't realise that they keep your family out. That's why they say, what about your family spirit? Well, they're like bullies. Go, they had bullies. They're gone. They can't get in that energy. You know? There's lots to learn and study, and it...
What would it be, but to say for your average Joe now, if they were experiencing something like you've just said, what would be their best line of defence, would you say?
Run!
Dig hole in the garden.
Buy new pants. Yeah, you've got to, on a serious level, you'd have to, I tell people, keep a diary, dates and times, because there might be a behaviour pattern, you know? Right. And so it might be a behaviour pattern, what smells, what's the weather, or little subtle things. And then go ask your local clergy if you want to, or spiritualist, and then they maybe come in. But I always say, if you invite a group in, if you want an investigation, and not a clearance per se, do your research on the group. You know, they could be, because there's a few, as we said earlier, a few, amateurs out there that don't know what they're doing. But you can always remember, it's your house. You can ask these people to leave as well, if you're not happy.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted then, something. So you would say, get someone in who knows what they're talking about. That would
Yeah. Research. I always say, anyone that comes to look for me has done their research. They must need help. If they've taken the time to find out me, I'm not a hard person to find, per se, you know. And then the spirit, again, like we said, will send the person. You know, but I do know if we did a live Jared on Friday after he went off. Somebody came on the second part, and they were told spirits don't harm people. And this is coming from a spiritual centre in England, which is quite famous. Why bury your head in the sand? I don't get that. You know, I know some churches do as well, but they're wrong. You know?
Well, I was taught by a lady called Gwen, and bless her heart, she passed away now. And she was quite a no-nonsense, right? And she taught us like the cold read so we could spot this. So if we ever spotted it, we could shop them. See, if you spot them doing it, you can say that's what they're doing, and they get in trouble. And she taught us many things. And the way she introduced me to spirit, because of the experiences I was having through meditation, because I kept having like negative battles. I kept having negativity coming in my meditation and trying to mess with it and trying to sort of like ruin things for me. And every time, and I didn't realize at the time, that's the path the spirit knew that I would go on. As an investigator, I would come across it all the time. You know, it would always be there at some point in the background. And I saw a spirit cause harm to a human being, right? By dropping them, right? It was a child and they dropped him. And that changed my opinion of the paranormal, right? In that instant, I thought, wow, if that's what's capable, what else is a spirit capable of, you know? But that was down to the person's own mental health as a spirit. That was what they went through in life.
Yeah.
You know, but it's one of them, and it's not.
So but some people like that, they don't want to cross over either. So, you know, because they're scared of what's facing them, and that's where your job comes in as a soul rescuer. And sometimes you have to give them a bit of a nudge. Come on, off you go.
Yeah,
you'll go. Everything's all right. You know, but again, that was in life as they are in death.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, this is what I tell people.
And I started out, like you, when I started out, I was doing the clearance. Obviously, the negative side, didn't like it, and things were going wrong for me. Oh my God, everything was going wrong. And my families were being attacked and all sorts. You know, but you got to endure with it.
Yeah.
Is Jared still there? He's been very quiet.
I'm still here. I'm just listening to the pair of you talk. You know, and it's quite interesting. So, is there any further questions you want to ask, Rich? Can I ask?
Can I ask about, have you boys got any UFO stories? That kind of interests me, you know. You were saying earlier Because the one I saw one years ago. It was a long, like, silver cylindrical tube, and it was mid-morning, 11 o'clock, and I can remember it was between Swansea Valley and the Delores Valley, Astragynnais. I don't know if you know it, and Crynant. I don't know if you know what that is. And I can see it now in my mind's eye going straight up, and other people must have seen this. It's the only sort of one I've ever seen, really, per se. But where I live on the back of a ley line. And it's a UFO hotspot, goes from here to Pyle, part of the Welsh Triangle. And if you go up on this particular mountain, you can see them zigzagging across. They're not standard aircraft, you know.
We've had quite a bit. We've had quite a bit of UFO activity, to be honest with you, Kev. We've done this thing, me and Jazzy, and we did this thing where we were contacted through ITC equipment, so like a ghost box.
Yeah.
And they've said the Council of 12. I met them in the church. When I was in the church, my first ever meditation, I was on a ship. I come back and my teacher, Gwen, said, "Oh, Rich," she said, "I believe, but the church doesn't like to talk about it." Right? So you'll have to and I was like, brilliant, I've come here for help. Like, I didn't expect that. I was just expecting to sit in a tree and talk to my old nan, like, do you know what I mean? That's what I expected to happen. I was going to sit in a tree, family were going to come in, they're going to go, "Oh, hey, love," and that was going to be my experience, but I didn't have it. Met these beings called the Council of 12. Well, it might be in my meditation. I had the sense they were more like the Divine Council. That's the sense I had. We did this IDC thing, and they made contact with us, right? And they had messages, predictions, and messages for humanity, and messages for us personally. And there was spirit mixed in there with Jared's brother, who we lost, about 20 years ago. And in this message,
it's been throughout our journey. The earliest message that we have was from my brother, is the first time I ever did a ghost box session, and it basically mentions the experience I had with the being that appeared in my bedroom, and there was subsequent other things that happened during that, which I'm not going to go into on camera. And basically it was after we had ITC, we were doing a live stream about a month later, and we had the mics went a bit nuts, like they did last week on the Now Debate, and it was creating voices from the microphones, and it says, "This is a voice from heaven." And over gradually leading up to doing the Now investigations, over about 3 to 4 years, we were having messages from Spirit and from these beings called the Council of 12, and it was 2017 that we realised it was actually the Council of 12. Sorry, Rich, carry on.
And they said they would show themselves, and I videoed them at the back of the house where you've got an incident of, obviously, from the back of my house, you can see Pentyrch, Lantris and Common, and in that area, right? I filmed them over a couple of nights, and I took this film of this interaction with a helicopter. And like I said, Gary's had a look at it, Gary Jones. I've had independent people look at it, and they've said it is a UFO.
Wow.
It's giving off its own energy. That wasn't the first experience we had. We had another one on Power Station Hill where me and Jazzy were doing readings, and this object came over. I got out the car, tried to film it, and my camera wouldn't work. And we chased it. We had a crazy weekend that weekend, mind. Because it was the same weekend I actually got possessed. So it was a bit of a mad weekend. But yeah, it's been thrust not just with the paranormal and spirit and different things. We've been thrust into this UFO stuff, Kev, and it's been a bit.
I didn't believe in it. I never used to believe in UFOs until I had that experience. Sorry, Rich.
So, no, it's been. Yeah, we've actually got footage, so it's on the channel.
Now, an aunt of mine used to live in Western Supermare in a place called Sandy Beach or Sandy Point, whatever it was called, and talk about USOs.
Yeah.
Now, where she used to walk her dog in the morning, there was a cliff. And she looked down one particular day on this cliff edge, and there was men playing football early hours in the morning. And they clocked her, and they were all dressed the same, and they all disappeared as soon as they saw her. So there must have been some sort of base. I wonder if, that thing, there's things going on up and down.
Well,
Oh, Kirsty.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, when we've had this interaction with the ghost box, we've had spirit and these beings communicating with each other and us.
Yeah.
So they're in the same, well, if you like, boat as us. They can communicate with spirit, and they can communicate with us because of their evolution. Their psychic ability, if you like, is quite something. And it's been, I got to be honest, Kev, it's been mad. It's been a journey. But the UFO stuff, like I said, I filmed this thing, and basically I've had it looked at, and it is what it is. It's a UFO. It's not an aircraft. It's not an helicopter. It's not a drone. It's not a balloon. It is a UFO.
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah, it is fascinating, but it's also daunting because like us as paranormal investigators, right? And you know what it's like out there, right? The majority of people are going to say we're using pseudoscience, which we've had, me and Jazzy, been added on the channel, right? We've had it through Facebook, but we're at the forefront of it. I've been in nearly 20 years. I've been in the field investigating the paranormal, helping people.
My thing is always this: science eventually catches up with spiritualism.
Yeah.
We've been saying this for years, but scientists are never wrong. They make new discoveries, but we've been saying it for donkey's years.
Well, it's Carl Sagan said if you make science and spirituality mutually exclusive, you do a disservice to both.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said on my channel on Friday as it goes, science and spiritualism are good bedfellows if used correctly. So when I go out and do stuff, and I do stuff for the public, I give them the equipment to do. So you get the results. There's no way you can cheat, and they can see people. Oh wow, that's what it should be, isn't it?
Yeah. But like the UFO stuff, I mean, it opens up so much more, I think.
Yeah.
It throws another, not spanner, I wouldn't like to say that, but it throws something else in the mix, because it's hard enough, sort of like people telling people you see dead people.
Yeah.
That can be a conversation starter in itself. They're low, not yet, but it's like
majority of people I find out that with me, they're more interested, believe it or not. 99% of people are, oh wow.
Yeah.
I think we have closet fans in that respect.
You do, and I've found it, right. It's like when we've done ITC sessions, like I've brought members of the family in and sort of asked for my brother to come through, but I probably wouldn't do it now, and it probably wasn't the best thing to do at the time. But I was learning, and the scary thing was not a scary thing. It was like what got me right was the way my brother reacted, which was exactly how we would have reacted, how I would imagine he'd react in that circumstance, which was when I brought I gave my mother the chance to use the ghost box, and he couldn't speak to her, and it was after that it dawned on me. It's like, you imagine you haven't seen someone in 20 years and you finally get that opportunity to speak to them. What do you say? It's gonna like choke you up. It's gonna make you feel tearful. Do you know what I mean? And I think he had that reaction. He had that reaction with me at one point, and he had that reaction with other members of the family when I've used those devices. So that is the power of those devices. And I was having a conversation with someone earlier when I was saying, it's like, you can say, yes, that is evidence now to suggest that you are speaking to a spirit. That is evidence to suggest you are speaking to something. They told us there was going to be a UFO. There was a UFO. UFO validated by independent witnesses, etc., 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 right? But it's a case of we've got to wait for the science to sort of when you're saying that we're at the forefront, I found myself a few times asking questions which not a lot of people have been asking about ITC. Is how are they doing it? How is that coming across? Is it someone pretending to be my brother or the Council of 12? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? And you've got to constantly keep questioning and asking and testing and, you know, and seeing where it leads you. And that's the line it sent me down. And like what Richard's saying about being on the forefront, it's hard to get your head around it when you're experiencing it, because it's personal. It hits home. Like it's not something you're doing just because you want to help people, or you do. There's a personal dynamic with it. There's a fact that you've actually got to be honest about it and about the way things have made you feel. And it's like, you know, a lot of the time the messages we have had have been quite have been quite personal. They've been quite like, you know, when I say personal, it's like, well, do you remember that instance, what you went through? Well, this is what was happening to you. I've found when we've had, they've gone from the intimate, so the conversations, what that spirit would have said to you had they have been here when you were going through a certain thing, to talking about what's on Mars, to talking about the Bible, to talking about ufology or different types of aliens, or what star system this alien comes from, or it's crazy. It's crazy how diverse the information we've had has been.
Isn't it? I come back earlier saying about people who say they know everything are spiritualists are lying. You know, there's so much out there. Our brain, human, we just can't cope until we get.
No,
you know, some people go, but again, when some people are going to, when they cross over, they're on such a high spiritual plane, they never come back anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but we can't comprehend this. You know.
Yeah.
I just about what Jazz was saying then. I remember we'd done a Now investigation live this one night, and he was talking about Jesus, and I was telling my ex-partner about it, and my daughter was you again, and she said, "What do you think of Jesus, Dad?" And I went, "No, love." I said, "The aliens were talking about Jesus." And she just looked at me like, and I was like, "Yeah, never mind."
Well, oddly enough, the woman next door must do a lot of praying, because overnight she's usually screaming Jesus or Jesus.
It's balmy, right? I got to be honest, right? I've been in situations where I've been telling someone a story, or I've been trying to reiterate the story for YouTube, and I've been telling it, and now I've lived it, right? I've lived it, and I'm telling it, and I'm like, I just won't believe it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I wouldn't believe it. I'm like, how am I supposed to make this believable? But I know in my heart it sounds unbelievable to myself, and I've been through it. It's like, you know, I always say we're like the 8th emergency service. Yeah,
because you can't just pick up 999, can you? You know.
Yeah, we've said this on the channel before, Kev.
Be quite surprised how many emergency service workers that I've spoken to, and you're probably the same, that have these experiences. Yeah. Even the police, you know, they go to homes. I can tell you, it's a good police story. There was a row of houses, and the neighbours next door saw their neighbour every morning waving to him, blah, blah, blah. But the police came down the street this one particular day, investigating some crime, and they went to their next door neighbour. There's a certain smell with dead people. Well, this neighbour they've been seeing every day, he'd been dead 6 weeks. Jesus. The police had kicked his door in. How good is that? And that's to come from the police, you know? Mm-hmm. I know they're told not to talk about it, but it goes on. Doctors and ambulance drivers.
Oh, yeah, Christ.
Yeah. Oh, I've had police tell me to get a building exercise. I've had nurses and doctors ask me to investigate Cardiff Oil in Germany because they don't want to work in some of the areas.
Right. There's a doctor called Dr. Penny Satori. Have you heard of her? Now, she writes books. She did an experiment years ago at Morriston Hospital. And she was putting newspaper clippings on top of the old heart. Remember the old heart monitors? And she didn't tell nobody they were there. And what she was doing, people were having out-of-body experiences. And she was bringing them back, and she was asking, what can you see? And so many percentage was saying what was on that piece of paper. And she writes books now, and she does talks around the local area. And Dr. Penny Satori, if you research her, she does these things. Not that life goes on, but energy goes on.
Yeah.
You know, so people of all walks of life, you know.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've been trying to find out the information about this experiment that's been done, I believe, in Switzerland, right? And they had 90, I think it's 96 volunteers to take a drug and essentially die. And then they were brought back to life and they had to document what happened to them. And they said the scientific group that did the experiment said, we are awful sorry about this. They put it in a science journal. And they said, but everybody had the same story. Like the majority went basically to the light in heaven and saw loved ones. And then some had the opposite experience where they would said they felt like they were in hell. Right? And these people volunteered for this. And you're thinking, Christ, why isn't that? That's a world changer. That's a game. Yeah. And they just won't put it out there in the mainstream.
There's a story of this is not my story, but I was told there was a guy going around psychiatric hospitals, I suppose is a better term, and he went on. I think he cured 10 people of the illnesses that they had, cured them, and he was stopped from doing it because they were possessed. That's what it came down to ultimately. And why stop it? But it is known fact, though, at full moon, that the crime rate increases, doesn't it, and all that jazz.
That's where the lunatic comes from.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot of other things affecting people as well, you know.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick look at what's...
I'm just going to say about the moon now, but we had this conversation on Friday. That fascinates me. Maybe you guys can fill me in about this. It's not meant to be there, is it? It's in that position. Isn't that correct?
I've been reading, there is a time, right, it is written in history, right, and I believe it's like Socrates maybe, or Plato, one of them, right, I always get them mixed up. He wrote about a time before the moon, right? Now I thought, nah, that can't be right, that can't be right. But that's culturally, in different parts of the world, wrote about the time before the moon. Now, I can't quite fathom and get my head around it. The fact it's in a fixed point orbit is rather strange.
Yeah, that's what gets me. It shouldn't be there. It's perfect.
It's as a celestial body, it is unnatural, right? It's the only one of its kind in our solar system that one side faces the Earth at all times, right? It's in a fixed point orbit. I know the technical name, but I can't think off the top of my head. It is odd, right? There's no getting out of it. It is odd, because it's necessary for life on Earth. So, when you look at it, it's strange.
About the dark side of the moon, was it China or Japan have just gone up to the dark side?
Yeah.
But they're not saying anything what they've foreseen. It's all gone quiet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there's other astronauts that said they were being watched when they landed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it seems to be any other astronauts that's I forget the guy's name. Gordon Cooper? He started talking about all this stuff, and then he died.
Yeah. Gordon Cooper. Now he was part of a project that he had a special camera, and he on numerous occasions said he had objects buzz him while he went around, while he orbited the Earth, and he used his special camera. And he said on numerous occasions, and he was told to shut up about it.
Yeah. Makes you think, well, we're not being told, we've been dumbed down, aren't we? You know.
That's the problem. That's why he says it's a bit sinister. And that's why he opens up a can of worms, right? Because there's something, if they're going to keep something like that, obviously we have the church, right? And culturally, the church is massive, right? And years ago, that set the precedent culturally. That was the ruling class, right? The church that decided kings, queens, governments, right? You had to go through the church before you set any of them up, right? And it kind of makes sense of the fact they don't want that out there because it takes away their power, right? It gives it an alternative story to evolution, right? And Genesis and everything. But it's what, if you look at us as a culture and our mindset, there's beings out there with the same set of, right? They take, right? If you've got something they want, they'll just come and take it. They're not going to share it. They're not going to ask for it. They're not going to say, can we have a bit of that? They're just going to come and have it. Right? So you can see that. And that's what...
I think, I agree with that. I think with all this the negative entities and stuff in the world, that's why as clearance workers, I think we send from home to come here to keep the equilibrium sometimes. We're like paranormal policemen, I call it. Maybe that's our job here. Keep it down a bit, you know? Just another theory that I have. You know, that's my job. That's why I'm here until we're all one, because we're all in a wheel. So when they're done with this body, they'll take us out, put another cog in. There'll be other clearance workers. Maybe that's what is, you know, just a thought.
Yeah, no, it is. That is actually a thing, right? We are what's Jazzy?
Ghost, yeah. I call it ghost bailiffs.
Yeah.
What's that, Rich? Sorry.
The term where we are here, we've been sent here from other worlds to like do good in the world.
You're talking about
we are light workers, aren't we?
No, are you talking about the 3 waves of volunteers?
Yeah, like is it starseeds or I can't think of it.
Yeah.
Starseeds is one of them.
Yeah, our children.
Indigos is another one.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I slightly clipped to the credits there by accident when I was trying to change the camera to my face. So I apologise for that. I'm still getting used to using this software. So if there has been a couple of blips during the show, you know, that's and I've kind of sat back and just listened to you guys because you seem to be having a good sort of conversation there, and I didn't really have any valid points to put in. But just
I'm quite impressed. I'm sat here without a whiskey.
Yeah, there are, like, for example, the writer Delores Cannon. She was a writer and researcher that used a form of hypnosis called the quantum healing hypnosis technique. And she started off doing regression hypnosis back in the 60s or 70s. And then she stopped. And I believe it was either her or her husband ended up in a car accident. And was bad. I think it was her husband who was badly injured. And she started doing sort of regression hypnosis, past life regression, and that sort of thing as a form of healing. And eventually what she'd find is her patients would go into a superconscious state and their guides would come in or other entities would come in, and what she would have over time is after the spirit guide would come in and finish healing, they would say, Delores, there's someone here that needs to give information, and they would give a name or a lot. Sometimes it would be like extraterrestrials. She wrote a few of them was known as the Keepers of the Garden or the Galactic Council. Others would be people from our history. Nostradamus. She did a lot of work with Nostradamus, but what she could have someone from, like, she was in like one of the central states. I can't remember the name of the state off the top of my head, but she could have, like, say, a client from New York come in 1 week, and she'd say, I've got Jacob to speak to you, and you'll give her the first part of the information, and then she could be over in France, for example, giving a talk and book some clients in and be talking, you know, doing a bit of a healing session with Francois, and Francois could say at the end, I've got Jacob who wants to speak to you. So Jacob would come through and use her patient as a vehicle to give the next bit of information, and that's how her information built up over time. That was her story. Watching Delores Cannon is a bit like watching your nan. It's just like she had that kind of, like, you know, when I don't know, most people of my generation remember, like, sitting down and listening to war stories of your grandparents. It was a bit like that, really. She had that kind of veneer about her. You could sit down, have a cup of tea, and she'd tell you really loads of interesting stories, like. But yeah, she wrote a book called The 3 Waves of Volunteers, and the way she explained was Earth was coming to a crisis point where we would start to awaken, but the problem was the balance was slightly out, and so the call went out that different souls would start coming to Earth throughout the last 150 years. And they would be like the first wave would hold the energy, the second wave would would be there and sort of push or nudge certain changes in a certain direction, and the third wave would be when the awakening happens and things start to sort of fall to pieces. They would be the ones that kind of like help the world sort of steer into the good direction and not the bad direction. Basically, that's the premise of the three waves of fire.
Yeah, no, I've heard another theory about that. There's going to be another war, 1,000-year war, I think it was called, where religion will go underground, and then after that, it'll all come back out again. That's in the second coming, you know. That's another theory that I've heard. But I can remember my 2 past lives, and I know of other people that have. I went to a house in down West Wales years ago of a little girl. She was 3 at the time, and she could remember being a past life. I forget which. She was one of the queens, say Queen Elizabeth from years ago. She can remember, and she'll tell you. She's only 3. There's no way she could have known it. And she was driving up this road one day with her mother, and she said, "Ma'am, you got all those people in that field there. Why they all died? And there's nothing there." So they did some research, and it turned out there was some sort of battle in the field.
Yeah.
Look at that. You know, but she remembers being a queen, and she would talk like it as well. She'd be la-di-da, you know. And everybody sort of beneath her, and that's how it's amazing.
We had one, but
my past life, definitely. Yeah, go on.
We had one.
Fascinating subject.
I can remember my past. The 2 I can remember. It's one I must have been in a war, whatever battle, going over the top, falling into the mud, and being shot. I can remember that, and I couldn't speak English, so obviously I was a foreigner. And the other one, I was a lady, and I'm going back, whatever, hundreds of years ago. I lived in a white cottage, I assume, and it was a woman married with a boy and a girl. I can remember that clearly.
Yeah.
Well, I can remember at least 5 or 6. Quite funny, actually. I've been having experiences over the last 48 hours that some parts of my past life have been coming back to me. And I've been having it. I told you Friday, didn't I? I was going through a lot of past life stuff at the moment, and I've probably been able to validate now at least 4 or 5 of them, i.e., find something in the area where I was supposed to be, or find out certain things historically, certain facts that relate to the memories I have. I've even got some stuff has come through the ghost box has talked about past lives and things. We did a case a couple of years ago where it was a young girl, and she could remember her mother. She could remember what her mother did, where she was, how she passed. Enough information that we actually validated it. We found her past life. And we found a picture of her. And the reason we got the case in the first place was the lady took a picture and of her 2 kids watching TV, and the little girl's face appears next to the skybox. And
Amanda's on the chat. She just said, "Good evening. Amanda is the mum of the little girl we helped." And so she's on the chat now and validate that story.
Fabulous. Yeah. They're fascinating. There's so much out there we don't. It's fantastic.
Guys, we're coming close to the end of the show. It's coming up to 9:30. Is there anything you guys would like to cover?
9:30. We've got a council watch of him.
Well, we do try and keep it to excess.
Sorry, that's a question. My spiritual name is Rent-A-Gob. I'm booked here. I'm on till 12 o'clock. I will just...
Well, you can't be, but I got pizza to eat. So.
I might finish and be in a diabetic coma.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I've got to be honest. I'm glad you come on, Kev. I've been dying to meet you because I've heard loads about you over the years, because I've known Jared and stuff. But yeah, would you be willing to come on again and having a talk?
Yeah. If you want a bit of eye candy, it's no problem.
Yeah. No, it's been interesting, but it's interesting. It's
I think some of the stories I wouldn't, because it's not my channel, but if you're on mine, you can get away with murder. And I have people following me, and I put some pictures up, and it's about not all love and light, you know. So I think it's important to tell people as well. It's not always positive. There's negatives, but there is.
We cover as
there
much
are
as.
There's people like us out there that would help.
Yeah, exactly, and we've covered these things on this channel as well, buddy.
Yeah. So Jared, I'll send you that book, then you can burn it. We can give it to Richard and burn it. And film me. It sucks, man. It's really bad.
I can't. We're gonna do a video review of it.
Yeah, just say it sucks.
We're gonna do a video review of this book, and
can you burn it? Can you burn it live?
Quite possibly, yeah, we could do that. We could. Rich, you up for that?
Well,
Rich,
books, but I'm not reviewing it.
Oh, it's terrible. If you wear a t-shirt, but this guy, he's gone on to kids and told them to take the t-shirts off because it can attract the demonic.
He's Catholic. You know?
Well, I don't mind whatever belief it is. It doesn't matter, but you know, to say that sort of stuff, you know, every religion,
it's
you know,
ridiculous.
There we are. Okay.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us this evening. Kev, thank you for coming on the show, buddy. It's been great fun as usual. And yeah, definitely we'll get you back on again in maybe a couple of weeks, a month or so's time, and we'll have, you know, more of a chat. Next week, guys, we've got Jessie Ann Nichols George, who's going to be doing a code update for the rest of the year, and how accurate she's been, given how accurate she's been so far on the channel. We know that's going to be an absolute stunner. And after that, we have a gentleman coming on from New Zealand, and he's going to have one hell of a story to do with his ET encounters to tell us about. So we've got special guests coming in. Richard, are we doing a news update on Sunday, buddy?
Yes, we shall have a look at a news update. Yeah, we'll have a go. Yeah, we'll do our Sunday, no problem at all.
So if you want to catch us, guys, for a news update on Sunday, Richard has got a video that's going out tomorrow on the channel, and I'm working on a presentation of a couple of videos that's going to be going out over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully there's going to be more stuff coming up as and when things move forward. So thank you guys for joining us. Sorry for the few technical blips this evening. We are still getting used to things, and I think we still have a bit of residual hiccupery from last week.
Yeah,
so,
I'm going to start calling you One Job Jared.
Why are you going to call me One Job Jared, man?
One job you had.
One job. Yeah. Well, Kev, I just want to say before you go, right, if ever, you know, there's anything this end we can do, let us know, Bat.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's what I tend to do. I've been on the phone to Jared. Past week, I gave you a case a few weeks back. Which one was that? Was that the Merthyr one? I don't think the lady got back hold of you.
Yeah, she didn't. We did ask her. We did arrange to go up there, and she cancelled. It might just be due to everything that's going on at the moment, dude.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I contacted. I think what it is, she moved.
Ah, right.
She moved out the property and things calmed down. But I said, if ever you need, in the future, she's got my number. She can contact.
There you go. Right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Anything further, Richard?
No, that's it. We're good. We'll see you in the next show, and just stay tuned. We got some interesting stuff coming up.
And we'll see you Sunday, guys, to go over some new stuff. It's gonna be all kinds of good. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. You've been watching the Now Debate. I'm Jared Walters.
God bless.
And
Kev.
Thank you, Kev the Rev. Take care.
Bye-bye.